introduce a new series that we're going to be talking about, and it's on GLP-1s, which you've probably heard about. Everybody's talking about these different weight loss drugs that are on the market. Well, I've done a deep dive with my sister, who's double board certified as an emergency room doctor as well as a functional medicine doctor, and she takes us on the most interesting discovery about the GLP-1s and why it's so much more than you might be thinking. You're not going to want to miss it. So we're going to break this into 4 episodes, and I can't wait to share it with you.
Okay, well, I am excited today to have you here to talk about a subject that's trending all over the place, and that is the GLP-1s. But before we dive into that, the weight loss, go ahead and tell us who you are.
I'm Dr. Camille. I'm a double board certified physician, originally an ER doctor, and now practicing functional medicine, specializing in hormones. And that includes all hormones, including bioidentical hormone replacement, thyroids, and even some peptides, which includes the GLP-1s.
Okay, and this is also my sister, so I'm really excited. Her and I have these conversations all the time about all kinds of things, and I truly learned so much, and it's really helped me so much in navigating my own health and feeling like I can give good advice to my friends and family, those people that I love. And so I wanted to start capturing these conversations that I have with Dr. Camille. And she's really, I just want to say this about you, Camille, is that I've just found you to be, the perfect medical sleuth. I mean, you really want to get to the bottom of what's causing these things. And I love that. It's so hopeful. And especially as, I've started to have different symptoms. My whole life, I've always felt great and just, I don't know. I think that I never thought that I would ever need hormones, or I thought aging was going to miss me somehow. But as I've started to have these different things and feel the need to be optimized, I've just really appreciated your insight on it. So I today I want us to talk about the GLP-1 craze. Everybody's talking about it, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. People have lost a great amount of weight taking these Ozempics and other kind of GLP-1 drugs. But there's also like negative things. People that talk about, whether it's risky for their health, whether they're just going to gain it all back if they stop taking it. And then there's the aesthetic part of it where people are talking about Ozempic face.
Yeah.
So tell us, what are your thoughts?
Okay. Well, first, I think we need to talk about what are these drugs, right? And so, mainly they're called GLP-1 receptor agonists, and they're peptides. So peptides really aren't new. Peptides have been used in like functional medicine for many decades. And really what a peptide is, it's a string of amino acids, and they're kind of like signaling molecules in your body. And typically what they're doing is mimicking hormones and compounds that your body already has. And so we've used them a lot in functional medicine for a lot of things. They're, anti-aging and sleep and things like that. Because, as you age, most things in your bodies kind of decrease. And so when we use, and there's lots of different ones, people have heard of like ipamorelin and sermorelin and all these different peptides. What we're doing is we're mimicking naturally occurring peptides in your body, and if you get a long enough peptide together, that makes a protein. And these are just shorter strings of amino acids. So that's really what a peptide is. Now,
Now we have Daxxify on the market, which is the latest neuromodulator on the market that has the peptide technology. So like it's not just for functional medicine, it's also for aesthetic medicine.
Yeah, yeah. So, and a lot of people, everyone knows insulin, right? Like, what would a diabetic do if they couldn't get insulin? But insulin was actually the first peptide drug that was synthesized and put on the market. So,
Hmm.
insulin is a peptide. Like, we all have insulin, our body makes insulin, but when your body doesn't make the insulin anymore, you take the insulin, which is a peptide. So that's kind of how they work. And so the GLP-1s, again, so we have GLP-1, and that stands for glucagon like receptor. And so we have these in our body. And when we eat, our body gets then stimulated by the GLP receptor to increase insulin, which creates a whole cascade of things in our body, including, your body now knows you ate, so feelings of fullness and things like that. And so that's really what we're stimulating with the GLP-1s. Now, there's all different ones on the market, and every drug has two names, which is, I think they do it just to make us doctors seem really smart because we know all these names that you don't. But for instance, Ozempic is the trade name of the actual product semaglutide. So semaglutide being the active ingredient in there. And then, drugs have to get approved by the FDA for certain things. So really, when you talk about Ozempic, you're talking about semaglutide for diabetes, and then really essentially the same drug approved by the FDA for weight loss as Wegovy is really semaglutide. So it's the same drug.
Okay.
Now, when you talk about the two main ones that you're hearing about right now is semaglutide and tirzepatide. So when you hear the names Mounjaro, that's tirzepatide as the main active ingredient.
Mounjaro is the brand name.
Is the brand name for essentially tirzepatide. And that is marketed under, so Mounjaro for diabetes, Zepbound for weight loss. So you're going to hear, there's at least 4 trade names you're hearing referring to essentially 2 peptides. Now, what's interesting is that they are slightly different. Semaglutide, Ozempic, specifically acts only on the GLP-1 receptor. But tirzepatide, or, Zepbound, works on 2 receptors, both the GLP-1 receptor agonist and another G1 receptor. And that actually has some interesting properties associated with it. Because of that, a lot of the data, study, and patient reports show that actually tirzepatide is not only better tolerated, but also more effective, because you're not putting so much emphasis on one receptor. You're kind of spreading it amongst 2 receptors. So that's the explanation. I don't know if you want to jump in with any other questions.
Well, I mean, that's fascinating. I mean, number one is I love the clarification. We hear all these different names and words and we don't know what they all are. So that was great to know that there's really only 2 different drugs, but 4 different names for that. Also, just understanding what a peptide is and that's really all it's doing. So I have a question about that. So when you're taking this peptide to stimulate these receptors, are we doing that because some people's receptors need stimulation? Are they not getting enough of that?
Yeah, and again, there's lots of different. I mean, of course, these drugs were initially developed for diabetics, and so, when you eat and it hits GLP-1 receptors, and then it stimulates the insulin. I mean, these diabetics are not producing enough insulin, so that's what's happening. Is it's stimulating the insulin, and then this whole cascade. So those people, need it from a medical standpoint. What they saw in the trials was that, wow, these people are losing a lot of weight and they're not as hungry. And so they started marketing it for weight loss. So why do people need it for weight loss? Well, that's a very nuanced, of course, there's many reasons why people are overweight. But I do, there are, and that's where there's a lot of negative commentary about people just want to take it because they just want an easy way out. And I think that some people, but so, there's lots of different people. Why are people overweight? Some people just want to eat McDonald's all day and never work out. Some people are like, 10 pounds overweight and maybe want to use it. But, I think there is a legitimate case for people who genuinely are much more hungry than the average person and genuinely have a very difficult time controlling hunger. And this is not just conjecture. This is proven in genetics and DNA and many studies. I mean, it goes down to, are they producing enough leptin and ghrelin and all these things, which are other peptides. And so that's for me really where I think this drug shines. Um, and I identify with that. I've been a naturally hungry person all of my life. And so, sometimes it's like you can do all the things, you can work out, you can eat healthy, but even if you're eating too much health foods, you're going to have a hard time losing weight. And so I think there's different reasons why people take the drug for weight loss. But those are the people I really, really, really like it for, are the people that are doing everything right. I'm working out, I'm eating healthy. And especially, as women get into perimenopause, I mean, this is where women really start crawling out of the dark and into my clinic, because of symptoms related to hormones, but also it's always that I'm gaining weight, I can't lose weight. I cannot lose a pound. That's what everyone says, right? So perimenopause is between, roughly when you're about 40 all the way up until menopause when you're about 50. And that's when women are having a host of symptoms. But it really, one of the big ones that many women are really plagued by is I'm not doing anything different and I'm gaining weight, or I'm trying really hard and I cannot lose a pound.
Okay, so I have a question around that then.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we'll save going into bioidentical hormones conversation in depth for another time, but how does this peptide actually help someone who is in perimenopause or in menopause and they cannot lose any weight? Are you saying that it's because the hormones are causing them to not feel hungry? I mean, it's causing them to continue to feel hungry? Like, how is this connected?
Well, that's a kind of deep conversation, but as you go through perimenopause and hormonal changes, you actually are stimulating metabolic dysfunction. And so by the time you get all the way to menopause in 50 and I mean, I've had patients that are full-blown health nuts, working out 6 days a week, lifting heavy weights, not touching a carb for any reason, fasting multiple days a week, and literally coming in and they're like, I was diagnosed as a pre-diabetic and I have elevated cholesterol. What is going on? So in and of themselves, of perimenopause and hormone dysfunction, you're going to get metabolic dysfunction. And with metabolic dysfunction, that drives inflammation, it drives weight gain. So it's kind of, all wrapped up in there. And so because these drugs do decrease your appetite, and you're trying, that is going to help you lose weight. But another thing I should mention, what I love about these drugs, and I have to be honest, I sat on the sideline of these drugs for a long time, a really long time, because I did see the headlines and the scary reports, and I'm definitely one of these doctors, do no harm, right? But what really hit me, I had a patient who I'd been working with for a long time, and her inflammation markers were always very high. And inflammation to me is really, the inflammation marker is the most important marker that you can have, because inflammation drives disease, period, full stop. Okay. So I don't care if you have high cholesterol, if you don't have inflammation, you're not going to have heart disease. I don't, all these things. Inflammation drives disease. And so we don't want inflammation. And what was fascinating, she went to another clinic and got on some compounded tirzepatide, and her inflammation markers went down. They were the best that they've been. Also, her, her markers for glucose and metabolic dysfunction, those improved too. But what was most important to me was that inflammation marker, and it was quite drastic.
So why would that be?
Well, that's part of the peptides. Peptides are very anti-inflammatory. And so that's where really a lot of doctors, and I'm not the only doctor. I mean, there's been a lot of doctors who stood on the sidelines and then have kind of issued public, like, I've changed my mind on this, because, there's a doctor that's really, popular right now. She's going on a lot of podcasts, because she's really introduced the idea of even using these drugs as microdosing. And she's a physician. She has rheumatoid arthritis. And so she really feels inflammation in her hands. It's quite crippling to her. It made it hard for her to even practice. And when she started microdosing this, she has a new lease on life. She works. She has no inflammation. She has no pain. And so that's a whole nother
Yeah.
side reason why you would use this drug.
That's absolutely fascinating. I
Yeah.
had no idea
Yeah.
that it has that sort of health benefit to it. And I remember, I remember our mom when we were kids, her telling me like inflammation is the enemy. You cannot have disease without inflammation. So yeah, if you could find something. So what you're saying is this doctor is talking about the microdosing, not really just to lose weight, but actually for just overall health.